what we do want to talk about today is the subject of holiday accommodation and things that didn't quite live up to people's expectations. Now, Wendy, we've had the conversations before about things that were radically different, like, advertised as having a sea view when they were actually 6 blocks back from the ocean and that kind of thing. We're talking today about slightly smaller things, but that do add up to your sort of sense of expectation and sense of letdown when you arrive at the property.
So it's different categories.
Yeah.
Those ones that are completely misrepresented, the pool's
fraudulent,
not filled, or it's green or whatever. The sea view that wasn't. To your dirty, smelly, kind of saggy mattressy kind of, and then you've got those that are, decently appointed, no biggie, but they're little mean things, little things that demonstrate the host's extreme consumer unfriendliness. And I have to admit that this example is very close to home. In short, my partner made a booking for self-catering accommodation for our moms for 5 nights in Pringle Bay with check-in shortly after Christmas. We were incidentally staying nearby with friends in a home that was their home, but they couldn't accommodate the extended family, right? So the moms arrived to find the place clean and modestly furnished. It was a good price for, they weren't expecting anything lavish. But most noticeably, there were no bath towels. Now, we're not talking about beach towels, which often places do provide as a service, but we're talking about bath towel, which one wouldn't expect to take. And the listing actually said bath towels, so that even me, wouldn't probably think before the story to look to see if there was specifically bath towels, because you would expect it. And interestingly, even the SA Tourism Grading Council's 1-star self-catering requirements include bath towels. So if you want to know what is considered acceptable, the SA Grading Council's website tells you for all category of things, from caravan parks up to 5-star hotels, what the requirements are for 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. It's a voluntary thing, but it's a very good indicator of what is reasonable to expect. What you should expect, So anyway, on top of the lack of bath towels, and we had to go and buy them a set at the local gift shop because we were staying was full up and no extras. There were the mean touches, and this is what I'm hoping we're going to get some feedback from our listeners about. So they had a single toilet roll for the 2 of them for 5 nights.
No, come on.
No. This is my best. They had been provided with half a bar of soap between them for their stay. I'm talking about a Lux bar and the smaller one cut in half. Not 1 half for the basin and 1 half for the bath. There wasn't a shower. Just 1 half, it just cut in 1 half.
I've actually tweeted a photograph in case you think Wendy is making this up. I have tweeted the photograph at CapeTalk.
So for me, if ever there was an indication of a host's approach to their guests, that would be it. The small bar of Lux cut in half. And then the other thing which I thought was strange, and I was unable to get a response from the platform, the accommodation platform, about this, and that was there is no municipal refuse collection service in Pringle Bay. It's a small village, and that's quite common. And so residents take their refuse, and there's a little lot, what we used to call a dump, but it's very small, and it's managed, and you drop your bag off there.
Yourself, okay.
And the host said that they must do that. These 2 old ladies must go and dispose of their own waste at that site. And at the end of the stay, she magnanimously said, well, you've created such a little bit that I will do it for you. But I sort of said to them, your own waste removal is not something that you would expect
from a rental property. Yeah.
Okay, so we left it. We got on with it. I don't like to be in work mode when I'm on holiday.
Totally understandable.
I wasn't going to do the Wendy Knowler thing. We bought them the towels, and we left it at that. We were lucky to find the place, because when we were trying to book, there was just nothing available, and so we just left it. I was on holiday, but then the moms checked out, and my mother said the host specifically said to her, were you happy with everything? And she's not going to say something now. So she started off with the single toilet roll. She was going to move on to the towels or whatever. And I'm like, you should have started with the bath towel. Anyway, she mentioned there was only 1 toilet roll. I think it was a 2-ply, to be honest, but there was just the 1. So the host shut her down completely and said, well, it is self-catering. That's what self-catering is. And I just was like,
no.
Catering means food. catering. I said on that explanation, they should consider themselves lucky that they didn't arrive to find just a flat fitted sheet or
mattress.
nothing.
Yeah.
Yes, completely stripped. So anyway, the other thing that the two old dears like to have boiled eggs, right? And there was just this massive pot, one huge pot for catering for 8 to 10 people. So every day they boil these two little eggs in this massive pot, and it's again the meanness of it. It sleeps to you. Have a small pot.
Have something that's
just we're not asking, anyway. So
the question to me, I mean, really, Wendy, it comes down to what would a reasonable person expect to find on arrival, given what they'd been told to expect and given what they were paying, etc. As you said, it's one thing if something was promised and not provided, that's straightforward dishonest.
Like
okay?
the bath.
Like
bath
the bath towels.
Yes.
Okay. But obviously you can make an argument. Assumptions, was there enough toilet paper? Is one person's enough soap for a week different from another person's? I've had the experience of arriving at a 6-sleeper accommodation to find only 5 forks, for example. Things like
I
that,
have two, which is annoying.
It's an annoyance, but some of them you let slide, some of them you actually know. Does anybody provide? So you've mentioned the Tourism Grading Council, but does anybody actually provide guidance to hosts on what is the bare minimum you should be providing?
To my mind, I think the platforms, the online platforms, the accommodation listing platforms should do that.
Okay.
And that's the question I asked of the one in this case, which was SA Venues. I said, do you provide your host with guidelines on what they should provide for their guests? And obviously, a good place to get that guideline in this country is the SA Tourism Grading Council. There is no other body that's doing that. I said, were you aware that this establishment requires their guests to bring their own bath towels? And is it standard practice in villages without a municipal refuse collection to expect guests to dispose of their own waste? I got a response just this morning, in fact, from Tanya Jacobs, who's SA Venues booking manager. She said, thanks for bringing this to our attention. I've reached out to the host and advised her that her advert states that towels would be provided. We're talking bath towels here, remember, not beach towels. This was originally her policy, but she's since changed that offering but neglected to inform us. I mean, why would a host do that? You've presumably had the bath towels to start with.
Maybe guests stole them and she decided it wasn't worth replacing them.
Okay. We can only guess. She neglected to inform us of this and indeed had not updated that specific facility or lack thereof on numerous other online booking portals and even her own website. We will update this immediately to prevent future issues. But this doesn't address your experience. She informed us that your guests made her aware of the missing expected towels and that she offered to provide them, but was told by your guests that they would get towels from friends who were in Pringle at the time, and she therefore didn't take further steps to recognise. I haven't checked that with my mother, to be honest, but I can't imagine why they wouldn't have said, yes, please bring us the towels if she'd said that. SA Venues continues, all properties provide different amenities depending on the standard of the accommodation and the costs charged. Budget properties do not provide toiletries and some do not provide basic cleaning materials either in order to keep the daily charge as low as possible for guests. I think that's perfectly acceptable. If you're in a budget place, you don't expect shampoo and all the rest.
Yep.
If we'd been made aware of the issues during their stay, this would have given us an opportunity to resolve the issues once a guest is checked out. It's obviously more difficult. Absolutely fair comment. As I explained, I wasn't going to...
in the mood for a fight on holiday, but that's a fair comment. If you're in the property,
completely,
raise the issue
possible.
while you're in the property.
Preferably the first day the day you arrive. As I say, it was only my mother's the comment of, but of course, this is self-catering. Basically, we're lucky to get the one toilet roll. She said if we had been aware, we would have asked the host to immediately provide the towels and more toilet paper, and should she have been unwilling or unable, we would have reimbursed you for the cost of the towels and the toilet paper purchased. I've said, obviously, I'm not asking for that. It's not about that. We're using the towels. It was just, you don't expect to arrive at a place and find no bath towels. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to respond. We're a family-owned business and take great pride in the service we deliver. We work exceptionally hard.
So as I said, I think very fair comment on their part that if you are going to complain, raise it while you're there so that there's an opportunity for them to rectify it while you're there. And as you said, Wendy, I mean, it sounds like this is kind of it's just a not particularly generous mentality on the part of the host. You understand they're trying to manage their costs.
Of course.
And if it's a budget property, expectations of what should be there and shouldn't might
but
differ.
But if it's coming down to cutting a small bar of soap in half for 2 people's 5-night stay,
that's a bit rough.
That's a little bit extreme.
That's a bit rough. And the bath towel issue, particularly given that it was advertised as providing them, that's not acceptable.
And now you've got to expect your guests to beg for bath towels or buy their own. It's just.
So interesting. Somebody listening who is a host themselves saying we have a holiday house that's let out regularly. We don't provide bath or beach towels since COVID. I am definitely going to try and reinstate this. Listening to this, we've also always supplied 1 loo roll per toilet and no soap, because I'm not mad about leaving bars of soap for continuous guests. I don't think it's hygienic, but thank you for highlighting this. We will have a discussion with our agent. Well, that's a great response.
That is a great response.
And let's have this conversation about what is a reasonable expectation. Yeah, the hygiene issue, I absolutely don't want to be sharing somebody else's bar of soap from one guest to the next to the next.
So you just allocate one. How much does a bar of soap cost?
Or you find a supplier, as so many people in this industry do, of the little baby bars.
I mean, exactly. Yeah. But as for COVID and the towels, that was never even in the height of COVID, scientifically or medically warranted. You presumably wash the towels, and there's no ways. COVID is spread through breathing. Particle.
It was not going to survive a good hot wash in a washing machine. Yeah,
fruit towels, even if they weren't washed. But so that is, let's get that off the table. This is never now and never was an issue to do with COVID, not providing towels.
Well, I'd love to hear what listeners think about this and what you think is a reasonable minimum that should be provided even in a budget property. For example, Wendy, I've often had the experience of arriving and finding there's somebody's decanted a little bit of sunlight liquid and left some for you. Enough to get you through your first wash or two.
Totally agreed.
Absolutely fine with that, on the expectation you're going to go to the shop and supply your house afterwards.
It shows empathy. It shows, I know what it's like to be a guest. I know what your needs are.
And I want to preempt them and make you feel welcome in
make you feel welcome. It's that generosity of spirit, as well as the small little things. It doesn't have to cost a lot. You can save little bottles from all sorts of things and just make it available. These are not high-end costs. These are little touches. These are little comforts that show your guests that you value them and that you're generous of spirit.
Value their business. Natalie's WhatsApp saying we're planning on Airbnb being our flat, and we would definitely allow all the proper crockery and cutlery and towels, etc. But how do we stop people from running off with it? Well, I mean, every place I've stayed in has had an inventory of what is in place, and if the owner or managing agent is doing their job properly, they're checking that inventory and identifying if something's been stolen and charging the guest for it.
It's about management, yes.
Yeah, you pay a deposit for that very reason. That if things are broken or stolen, it's taken from that deposit, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You have to be on top of that. I mean, we stayed in a place in 1st of August last year in Colesberg, or Colesberg as we called it. It was -2. And 3 bedrooms. Anyway, and only one of the beds had an electric blanket, and there was no other heating. There was a heater in the lounge, but none in the bedrooms. -2, may I remind you. Yeah. And they said, oh, sorry, the previous guests stole the electric blankets.
No,
and they were new at it, and I felt for them. But, and I suppose, that's a lesson learned. You have to check for the electric blanket. So I don't know how long before they had checked out, but it was made for a very, very uncomfortable night for us.
Boggles. Yeah. Okay, so a couple more comments here. Lynn saying, when we started our self-catering, Knysna Tourism came around and was so helpful, giving us fabulous advice. And I can tell you, when guests walked through the front door and looked out at our beautiful lagoon, they just responded with, wow, it's just like your photo. It was so rewarding for us. We aren't in the business any longer, but we believed you should have what you advertise, and we're very proud of being super hosts. Lynn, I mean, that's exactly the kind of host you hope you're going to get.
Exactly.
And well done on offering that.
Such pride and such so invested in making their guests stay memorable. And also, I mean, it's good for business because you're going to get repeat.
And good reviews afterwards.
And
so much now, as you've always said, check the reviews. Don't just book blind, go and have a look.
Exactly.
And it's well done to Knysna Tourism for offering that service of helping you look around and give advice. I think that's really, really encouraging. Somebody else saying, my problem with self-catering accommodation is they don't always give you a full list of their version of a fully equipped kitchen. Do I need to bring a teapot, for example? I mean, again,
I think ask the question beforehand.
If it's important to you, ask.
And so one of my takeouts from this, and I should say that the New Year party grew and grew, and I had both of my adult children and one of their friends booked into lastminute.com self-catering place, also in the village, and it was great. They had, a whole pack of toilet rolls. They had all the rest, plenty of soap, but no fridge. And when we looked through the listing, I just assumed that there would be a fridge, and they said, sorry, you were just setting it up. We're going to get that soon.
Oh, my goodness.
So they had
that's
a mark,
huge
and
one.
so it created, and she very kindly, they lived in the adjoining house, and she put some of their stuff in
her own fridge.
My son's vegan and had a whole lot of his own stuff, and it really wasn't. Otherwise, it was fantastic. But my takeout is don't assume anything. When you look through those lists, I don't know that even I, before this incident, would have looked specifically for bath towels, not thinking that there wouldn't be, or a fridge.
I certainly wouldn't have thought.
And we went through the list, and it had microwave, kettle, toaster, and she was so generous with it. There were different kinds of rusks and many kinds of tea, and you could see the care. But I suppose, the fridge they were still saving up for or something, and it just wasn't there, and we didn't notice. So it's not like it was, as in the bath towels case, it's not like it was misrepresentation. We just assumed it was there, and my takeout is don't assume
nothing. Okay, how about this one? We arrived to an Airbnb where we'd hired the whole house to find that the host had cordoned off a portion of the house with a sheet of roof metal. He lived in the room and bathroom in that cordoned off area and continued to use the kitchen. We left before even staying the night, and it was a nightmare getting a refund from Airbnb. Now, Wendy, on that note, you did want some general advice to share. As you said, don't assume anything, check the list of facilities very carefully. Anything you want to say about the various platforms as well?
I'd also say look around on their website for what kind of backup they give you as a guest. So, for example, I've spoken about this on the back of the story we did this time last year of Liesel van der Westhuizen's disastrous Port Alfred house. That was through Airbnb. And the big learning out of that one was something she didn't do, and that was complain about the massive list of problems within 24 hours of checking in, because the hosts were sort of saying, okay, we will do this, we will do that, which proved to be ineffective. But Airbnb holds on to the guests' money until 24 hours after check-in as a means of being able to offer their 24-hour guarantee.
Okay.
So in which case they will refund or relocate or whatever it is that you would like, if obviously their own investigation reveals that, yes, things are truly dire. So complain within the first 24 hours. Sleeping Out, a local, very large accommodation platform, has a deposit guarantee, which goes like this. When you book with Sleeping Out, we underwrite your deposit up to the value of 10,000 Rand with larger amounts by negotiation. So your deposit is always secure. If the establishment is unable to accommodate you for any reason, they're not talking about the accommodation being awful, we will refund your deposit or give you alternative accommodation. So at least there's some bargaining power there. I didn't go through all of them, but I would certainly say if you find nothing like that on the site, nothing about, that states
what are their policies for dealing with a complaint.
Yes. Or to the extent to which they do or don't back you up if you have a real problem. Ask questions. I would feel far more comfortable
booking elsewhere with somebody who did offer that.
Yeah, I would suggest that it would be better for you, better choice to go with one that's going to give you some backup of some kind.
In the event that things aren't what they appeared to be. Okay.
Lunch with Pippa Hudson
on CapeTalk.